Hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks for joining me for Real Talk NFT. As you know, I'm the host, Brian. We have my outstanding, amazing co-host, Joe, and we have an awesome guest here for you today. He's the head of business development of Injective Labs, a layer one blockchain. It's Mirza. Really happy to have him on the podcast talking all about Injective Labs and what they're building. Mirza, how you doing today?
Doing well. How are you guys?
Doing great. Super happy to have you on, to be honest with you. We're gonna talk a little bit about this. We're talking a little offline. I do hold some of the token and utilize some of your protocols and some of the decentralized apps. So I'm definitely excited to learn more. But before we dive really deep into Injective and everything that you're building, we'd love to know a little bit about your background and what your role is at Injective right now.
Yeah, for sure. So before Injective, so I've been at Injective for 4 years now, which seems like a lifetime.
Yeah.
Before that, career was primarily in finance. So I started off working at a firm called Two Sigma, they're primarily known for quant trading. I was on the ventures team actually investing into crypto primarily. This is back in 2017. So we did a couple deals you guys might remember from like DeFi summer, like let's say UMA. That's probably the most recognizable one. And that's when I really got into crypto. If you guys remember, the 2017 cycle was absolutely bonkers. And it was in position to be in because I was just getting out of college. I was at a place where we were looking into a lot of these companies. So right afterwards, I jumped ship from VC and started working in crypto full time effectively. That's when I met Eric. Eric is the co-founder and CEO of Injective. This is back in 2018, and we pretty much became best friends immediately. I was probably like the first person, or at least the first 2 or 3 people to read his white paper, which is cool. And yeah, ended up joining him soon after, and I've been here ever since. I think when I joined, there was only like 3 people on the team. Right now, we have about 60 people. In the last 4 years, we've grown a lot. When I was joining, I remember like me and Eric were working out of this co-working space and we didn't have any money. So we were just sharing like a desk. And now we have a nice office and stuff, so that's my journey and that's what I do at Injective. In terms of day to day, like anything you can imagine. So anything from like doing partnerships, ops, marketing. I even handle social media time to time. So yeah, like when you work at a startup, you end up like, not to be cliche, wearing multiple hats. So yeah, that's what business development, I guess, means in crypto.
Yeah, I was going to ask because in what we do specifically with NFTs, digital assets, it's so broad, right? Head of business development for a blockchain, I imagine. With everything that you guys got going on, you could be, working there for 24 hours a day, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So being,
I actually. Oh, sorry, Joe, didn't mean to cut you off, but I actually saw a tweet on your Twitter just a little bit ago. It was something just in that vein was, you've been here for X amount of years and you haven't, the entire Injective team's worked every single weekend since you
just
started.
Have to. It's just such a weird industry if you think about it, right? Like no other industry, please correct me if I'm wrong, is so 24/7. Like the markets are 24/7. It's such a global system. Like sometimes you're taking calls out in Asia, Europe, America. It's global from day one, which I don't think any company operates that way. Usually when you start a business, it's like, hey, we're going to only go after people in New York and then slowly expand across the US. But crypto's like, no, from day one, we need to build communities in Korea and China and America and Europe. And it's just like, that's why it's so 24/7, because it might be our weekend, but it might be Monday in Asia. So you're pretty much working on that Sunday.
Yeah, that's a good segue because it's so broad, but I think Injective is focused primarily on finance, a blockchain built for finance. Can you, on a high level, explain Injective for those who don't know?
Yeah, for sure. So the easiest way to understand what Injective does, it's like, yes, it is a layer one, but it is a sector specific layer one for finance. So what we realized early on is there's a ton of great chains out there, right? Like many chains are tackling like scalability issues. They want to be fast. They want to be cheap. I think many chains have achieved that, arguably, like let's say chains like Solana or even Aptos and Sui. So there's a bunch of general purpose chains out there. And then you had a number of different applications. And what we realized is it's very, very difficult to be a jack of all trades when you're a chain, right? So if you're a chain and one day you're doing metaverse, one day you're doing NFTs, and the next day you're doing DeFi, you likely are going to be decent, but you're likely not going to be perfect for that solution. So that's where we want to fit in. We want to fit in that wedge in between where we're saying, no, we don't understand that there's hot narratives all the time in crypto. How can we, one, make it easier for people to launch applications related to finance, primarily things like DeFi or any sort of financial transaction, whether it be payments, etc. So we want to be super focused and hyper focused because at least us internally, we believe finance is the major use case for crypto, and it has so far been the main use case for crypto to date. Because every single thing you do in crypto is probably finance. Even if you're sending an NFT to someone, that's technically a financial transaction. So that's sort of the base layer we came with. And there's a couple things that make us a blockchain for finance, right? Like, so what does that mean? One, we wanted to sort of make a WordPress type platform where we provide you templates for building applications more easily, right? So on Injective, you get a set of core modules, like let's say an on-chain order book, options, etc. And you don't have to start those things from scratch. So let's say right now, a bunch of developers on Injective are building prediction markets platforms for, like, let's say betting on the election, right? Usually on any other chain, you'd have to write that smart contract. That will probably take you a couple months. You'll have to get it tested. You'll have to get it audited, and then you launch it. Overall, it'll probably take you at a minimum like 7-8 months to get this product live, which is really difficult if you don't have the money or the resources. So what we did instead is say, we'll just give you the template and you can probably get this app live and running in a day. So that's our bread and butters. These on-chain modules that allow you to make things like DEXs, lending protocols, prediction markets in a day. The second part is, yes, we've enhanced performance and scalability. It's super fast. It's super cheap. It's half the cost of Solana actually right now, which arguably is one of the cheapest chains out there. Which is great because what we want to optimize for is like, what do you need for finance? You need to be able to get products to market really quickly, where our modules come in too. You need to be really fast and really cheap. And you want to be hyper focused in permission, right? So even today on Injective, to launch a dApp, you can't just launch any dApp you want. It's a curated, governance gated process. So basically, if you want to launch, you have to go through governance. So this way we avoid a lot of congestion issues other chains have because we're not getting a bunch of random applications popping up, one doing metaverse, etc., and just, let's say, taking up a lot of block space. So it's also, I think that's unique and many people often look past that, but Injective is actually permissioned to an extent, which we believe allows to give a curated experience. Because if you're a big institution, you want to actually use a chain, you don't want to be in a situation where it's congested by a bunch of NFTs or gaming applications, and then you can't get your transaction through. So that's, I know that was a mouthful, but those are the ways in which we think we're a blockchain for finance for these reasons.
No, that's great. I wanted your thoughts on where the future is, and I'm going to lay this out pretty specifically. Like we see institutions, right, like Franklin Templeton doing on-chain market funds. Yeah. But then again, my friends, or maybe my friends are just a little bit more degenerate. You know, they're DeFi staking, yield staking, you know, leveraging to the max. Where is finance going? Is it going to be, you know, segregated, you know, blown up to smithereens, and a lot of small folks can come in and play? Is it just going to be helped by the main players, you think, in the future?
It's a very good question. I have a contrarian take. So I think you'll see a mix of both. So the best way to think about blockchain systems, it's just an infrastructure layer on the back end, right? So for example, a couple hundred years ago, people were trading stocks with paper, right? Like you could just write something on a piece of paper. Over time, it became more digitized, and then people are doing it on the internet. So I think, yes, you'll have those big players come in and adopt the technology. So that's why you see guys like Franklin Templeton coming in. That's why you see a number of, like BlackRock coming in, launching their Buildle fund using crypto, right? On-chain rails. So that's one part of it. I think what makes crypto interesting, though, is the second part you sort of alluded to, where people can actually own this technology. Where, yes, an institution or a big guy might be using the rails, but those rails are not controlled by any one person. It's controlled by a group of people, like the community, people who are staking the token, right? Ultimately, those are the governors of the blockchain. In terms of which applications or where I see the future going, this is how tech evolves in general. At first, you see very degenerate use cases, right? Like, yeah, on-chain leverage going to 1,000x, etc. Because people often forget, but the early internet was similar, right? Initially, it was a lot of like very weird use cases, like whether it be online gambling, whether it be lots of explicit things, right? Like that's what a lot of initial technology is used for. And over time, it becomes more up, and you see real players and real bigger guys coming in. And I think that's where crypto is right now in this like critical juncture where you had these really degen use cases, but now institutions are coming in, right, with ETFs and all these other cool features and functionalities. So, and they can all coexist, right? Like today, you can online gamble online, but at the same time, you can use Bank of America online, right? So in the same way, blockchain is evolving, right? You can get the BlackRock Buildle Fund on the blockchain, and you can also trade NFTs on the blockchain. So I think that's where we're headed, and that's where the future is. It's not going to be big guys take it over or small guys take it over. It's going to be basically this platform where everyone can come in and use it, similar to how they use like current tech.
Going back to what you said a little bit ago, did you say it's half the cost or twice the speed of Solana?
It's half the cost.
It's
speed we're working on. We're almost as fast, not quite. So I do have to add it up. Yeah.
No, I mean, half the cost. I mean, I guess that's something Injective's always been kind of recognized for, is for its speed and low cost in transactions. Do you give like how does the performance advantage like impact the user experience on the platform? Just give the audience an idea why that's important.
No, it's super important, right? So even think about something that we've all probably purchased an NFT, right? Like we've been in crypto for a while. So think about it this way. A typical collection in crypto usually has 10,000 NFTs, right? To launch that on Injective, it would cost you $1. Whereas on any other chain, it would cost you thousands of dollars or even hundreds of dollars. So I think that's where you start to see the scale differ. It's like, yes, maybe for one transaction, you don't really care whether it was $5 or a cent. But if you're a typical person is probably sending hundreds of transactions, like every time you even do a Uniswap, like a swap on Uniswap, you're probably making 2 transactions. You need to verify or confirm, and then you make another. That's already like probably $15 at a minimum. At peak times, it could be hundreds of dollars. So at scale, you start to recognize, like if you actually look at your yearly cost, there's some cool websites where you can actually see how much you've spent on MetaMask. The numbers might shock you. And a typical user, let's say, spends $1,000 a year on Injective, they'd be spending a cent. So I think that's the difference. And that's where you start to see the scale.
Yeah, that's really important because, especially for the NFT crowd, that we talk to a lot of people in NFT and Web3 and microtransactions in gaming, all that stuff. And if anybody was here, in the bull run of 2021 when Ethereum mainnet was costing people hundreds of thousands. I know. Yeah. I remember compiling my taxes and looking through I was like, I got a pretty nice little gas fees.
And then you realize you actually spend more on gas fees than the profit you made from whatever token you bought. It's like, I might as well not have bought this.
Yeah, it's a very real issue in Web3, but blockchains like yourself are absolutely solving it every day, and that's why I think this kind of multi-chain ecosystem is so important, and that's something that you're doing over an Injective as well. Would love for you to just like elaborate a little bit on that, like the interoperability and being multi-chain and why that's really important.
No, 100%. One other point I wanted to make on the transaction cost point, that's just an example for us everyday people, right? But think about an institution or a high frequency trader that's sending like thousands and thousands of transactions every single second.
Yeah.
That's why it matters, right? Because no one will use something if it costs you thousands of dollars to do that, when even online it costs you nothing. So I think that's another reason why we did it. It's not just a vanity metric. It's actually a request we kept getting from different, let's say, institutions or market makers or what have you. It's like, hey, I can only trade if the cost is basically zero or as close to zero as possible. So that's another like point I want to mention. Multi-chain ecosystem, not great of a segue, but I'll try my best. But multi-chain ecosystem is super important, right? So when you think about it, I think the entire industry has evolved to realize that there will be multiple chains that coexist. Where when we at least started in crypto a couple of years ago, that was unthinkable. We basically thought, now Ethereum's pretty much going to rule it all, and there's going to be not much space for multi-chains. But then people like Solana came out, people like Aptos came out, people like Injective came out, and it's like, oh wow, all of these different chains have so many users, and we could see that happening early on. So what we wanted to do, again, we don't want to be a jack of all trades. We don't want to be a general purpose chain. We want to be this blockchain for finance. And what that means is you should have access to any type of asset. It shouldn't matter that you're using, let's say, an Android phone or an iPhone. You should be able to use Google Chrome, right?
Right.
It's kind of a far-fetched analogy, but that's a good way to think about it. So just because I'm using Injective doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to use Solana tokens or tokens from Ethereum or tokens from any other chain. So we spent a lot of time, one, developing a bridging infrastructure that sort of abstracts away these processes. So right now we've integrated a bunch of providers on the back end. So let's say like Axelar, Wormhole, Layer Zero, etc. And on top of that, we also created additional bridges to Ethereum ourselves, like internally. That's what we spent probably at least a year of dev work on. So now what you have, if you go to bridge.injective.network, you can bridge from any of these popular networks, whether it be Ethereum, Solana, Binance Smart Chain, and you can bridge in. And the user doesn't have to know what's going on behind the scenes. They don't have to know that, hey, this is actually being done by Wormhole or this is blah, 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 because the end user doesn't care. They just want to get Solana on Injective or vice versa. They want to get Injective on Solana, right? And that's what we provide. So one, the bridging experience is entirely abstracted away. The second part is on all of the dApps, we make sure that there's use cases for the token. So as soon as we integrate a chain, we make sure that our lending dApps like support Sol, our exchanges support Sol. So if a user has UNG on Injective, they can easily get Sol without having to bridge out or do all these complex things that cost a lot of money and a lot of time. So it's not just about like having the bridges, it's also about enabling the use cases for the asset. A great example recently is actually with Ondo. They were initially on Ethereum, and we're like, okay, imagine if people could use USDY, which is like basically their tokenized treasury, and they could trade with it. So when you're lever longing or lever shorting BTC, you can be earning yield at the same time, because if you use USDT, you don't earn the yield, right? You're just trading it. But with USDY, you can earn that yield and trade that derivative. So it's like a double whammy. So those are the use cases that I think are important that people often don't think about. They just think like, oh, we have a bridge. People are going to use it now. But no one's going to use it unless you actually provide an interesting use case, because otherwise I might as well get Solana on Sol. Like I don't care about having it on Injective. So I think that's what we mean when we talk about sort of this integrated or multi-chain ecosystem. It's not just about bridges. It's about enabling new use cases or functionality that wouldn't exist otherwise.
I love it. You want yourself a new user, a client, whatever you want to call it, because I feel like that's the next iteration, right? Where it's seamless interoperability in the background. Right now, it's all on the forefront, like USDC on Flow, USDC on Solana, USDC on so many things. I'm like, I get it, but seeing that work in the background seamlessly, I'm glad someone's heading that up, and I'm glad as you guys. And I love what you said earlier about, finance being touching a part of everything, reward assets, NFTs, whatnot, because that really was the driving force in 2021. But it is true, there's a lot of, whether it be financial gain or just, gain through the customer loyalty side, there is gain either way. So definitely incentivization is very, very important for blockchain. So I'm glad to see you guys. You guys are in the top 100, I would say, in the crypto markets and crushing it.
Thank you.
I had a question, and that's what I was saving for on the cast. I know we were talking before. I had to do a double take. I was like, is that a DGods on your Twitter profile? But it's not. I'm sure it's an Injective NFT. Can you talk about that?
It's an Injective NFT. It's called Cult of Anons. So it's a bunch of community members that came together and made a special NFT collection. It was special actually because the cost was like nothing. I think it was like a couple dollars, because they just wanted the entire community to sort of buy into it and like have it as PFPs. We have a couple collections like this, but yeah, I really like that one, and I scooped it up because it was like a rare piece where it looks way cooler. So, but no, it is not DGods. It is indeed an Injective native NFT.
I do have a question. Not native to NFTs or RWAs, but being ahead of biz development, you must see some very unique use cases in the Web3 world. We like to use the word utility a lot, but what's like the most ideal one that you've heard, or one that you gravitate to the most, or is the most interesting?
That's a good question. I think like the example I gave earlier is actually interesting to me. So then imagine a world where traders can earn yield while trading. I think that's that's all people are doing in crypto, right? Let's just cut to the chase. People are here to speculate on assets and to make financial gains. That's what attracts most people, whether it be institutions or everyday people. So when you think about utility, yes, it's good to have all of these innovative use cases or like jargon and white papers that no one understands. But ultimately, all the people want at the end of the day is like, hey, I want access to tools that I don't have in Web2. And I want access to new financial opportunity that I don't have elsewhere. So I think the two major use cases that have been proven time and again in crypto has been like trading of assets or like speculating on assets, and two, making yield or like basically putting your money somewhere and earning more money with it, right? I know like I'm very much oversimplifying. I'm sure there's a lot of amazing use cases out there, but this is my like 2 cents on the matter. The most interesting use cases for me is when people are trading, how can they get access that they wouldn't have elsewhere? So whether that be one, earning yield while trading derivatives, two, having access to assets you wouldn't find elsewhere. So let's say tokenized private equity funds or not just tokenized treasuries, right? That's easy. But let's say tokenized index products. So we have baskets of assets now. Like imagine a new index fund with all layer one tokens in there. So when you buy it, you're getting exposure everywhere instead of just one thing. I think those types of financial instruments to me are the most interesting because that's what's missing compared to us in TradFi. TradFi, it's easy for us, right? It's like, hey, we just buy the spider index and now we have access to the entire S&P 500. Those types of products don't really exist on chain. So if we have that, plus you add in new yield opportunities, whether it be through things like Mountain Protocol or Ondo or BlackRock's Build Fund, then you actually have new use cases that will make people leave TradFi and come to crypto. Because right now, the only reason people come to crypto is to trade things like meme coins, right? Because that doesn't exist in traditional finance. It's unfortunate, like that is, but that is the main use case, and that's fine. But if we want to grow out of that and also have more serious people come in or more people in general come in outside of memes, you need new asset classes or new sort of ways to make financial gain in crypto. So that's why I'm most excited. Might seem basic. I'm most excited about those things because I think that's where you get big money players, bigger people coming into crypto. And that's what we need to grow as an ecosystem. We need like both everyday people and we need bigger guys to come in.
How do you view the evolution of DeFi over the next few years? I personally think it's, I mean, we had like DeFi summer years ago and DeFi is just becoming more and more popular, you know, in our world of Web3, but curious how you think it's going to like attach itself to mainstream.
Yeah, I think it has to do with if people can access DeFi without, again, the jargon. I think right now it's impossible to onboard onto crypto. Obviously, I'm over exaggerating to an extent, but it is, right? Like if you ask someone like my dad to like, hey, like come try out even a dApp on Injective, it will take him forever, right? You'd have to like get some assets on Coinbase. He's going to have to bridge it over. And that's for not just Injective. That's for any blockchain or any dApp you can think of. And that's why when we talk about mass adoption, I know it's become like sort of a meme at this point, but it can't happen unless you have ways to access. So I think a very simple solution is, okay, just on my phone, can I actually put assets into DeFi without knowing it's DeFi, right? Just like I would on, let's say, my Robinhood app or Marcus by Goldman Sachs or any of these apps, right? Wealthfront. You can have an application or a web interface where you don't have to know about bridging. You don't have to know about crypto. You just like actually put in your bank details somewhere. You transfer in like $100 and boom, you're earning yield on the back end. It happens to be on crypto rails, but you don't know about it. I think that's the next stage of DeFi. If we want to grow out of this bubble of just like very, very crypto native users, I think right now in DeFi, I'd be hard pressed if even there are more than 1 million unique users. I really doubt it. I don't think there are more than 1 million unique DeFi users. Someone like me might have like 20 wallets, just like you guys probably do. But like, no, in terms of uniques, I don't think it's over 1 million. So if we want to cross that chasm, I guess we need to actually abstract away the complexities, whether it be like bridging, whether it be the fact that DeFi right now requires sexes to even onboard, right? Like, what is the point of DeFi if the only way to get in is for me to first have a Binance account or Coinbase account and then transfer the money from there? Why can't we have a system where the on-ramps are directly integrated onto the platform and then we access the product. That's why I think prediction markets are so interesting, like Polymarket, because you can actually onboard without having to go through that. And that's why they see so much traction and usage, in my opinion, because they realize this as well. It's like, hey, the use case can be super simple. All people want is to speculate, like on things like the election. How can we make it as easy as possible for people to get onto this without having to know anything about bridging or Ethereum or Injective or anything? I think that's when we get to the next stage of DeFi.
How many times I can remember that I've like gone to a swap website and I'm trying to do like a cross-chain swap and I'm assigning all these transactions. I swear I'm reading them. And, you know, the money leaves like your MetaMask or leaves your account. And I'm like, not exactly
and you don't see
sure.
It for 20 minutes.
Yeah. And it's not like on chain. And I'm like the transaction clicking. It's like, we've now found this transaction. And I'm like, wonder if that's ever going to show up on the back end. So I where I'm going with that is I know exactly what you mean from like a mainstream adoption or close friends and family that I've onboarded onto crypto, but I've like tried to kind of explain like different sectors to them, like Web3 gaming or DeFi, and it's like goes right over their head. And I always think I was like, it has to be when it becomes easier, everyone's going to see like how big of an opportunity this is. And then kind of me selfishly, I'm like, well, I'm getting these great yields. I have these great opportunities. Am I going to still get these great yields if, you know, we have 100 million people? But I do believe, you know, we will for obvious reasons. But just kind of stating on my own personal experiences, when I've done a swap, sent it over, I'm like, man, I hope that shows up.
I agree. I totally empathize. Especially when you're bridging from another network.
Yeah.
You don't even know. So one time it took me literal hours to see it. And I was like, oh, I think I just lost all my money. It's just stuck somewhere. And you can't call customer support because that doesn't exist. So you're just kind of on your own.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're all kind of in the industry, I guess, because we've walked so other people could run, or whatever the saying is there. I've definitely tried to explain it to friends who have onboarded. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're going to be fine. It's good. That bridge is going to go through. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, I'm 99% sure.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing here at Injective. You know, I'm actually a holder, and I dabble with some of your decentralized apps and protocols. I'm just curious if you want to give a shout out to some that, you know, that are, you know, front and center on your blockchain, and, you know, kind of what you're building in the future, any possible partnerships.
Yeah, for sure. I would say shout outs. This is hard. There's a lot. I'll just try to do it by sector. Neptune is doing a lot of cool things when it comes to on-chain lending, where you can like lend and trade at the same time. Hydro protocol is a really good one to check out for real yield assets. It's sort of a term they, I guess, coined, where you can actually get RWAs and earn yield using the RWAs on the same platform. I think those are two very interesting use cases. Helix is sort of our flagship DEX, where you can do some of the things I was mentioning earlier, where you can trade on leverage and earn yield at the same time. If you want to go to the Wild West, check out Talus, because that's our main NFT marketplace. And there's a lot of interesting community buildup. I would say that's a very unique positioning of Injective in general. Like the community, we have this mascot called a ninja, because the word ninja has INJ in it. A community member made it up, and it like really stuck a couple years ago. And now you have this community of like ninjas on Twitter who are making things like NFTs, making new dApps, making new memes. So definitely check out that space as well, because I think that's where a lot of new users come into crypto floor, whether it be sort of to get new NFTs or these days to get new meme coins. There's a lot of cool ones, like whether it be dogs, cats, or very like ninja specific themes. I'm not financial advice. I'm not telling you to get the token. I'm just telling you check out projects in general. I might get in trouble for that. But yeah, I would say those are some of the recommendations. There's also a lot of very cool upcoming dApps that I'm very excited about. Bull and Bear is going to be a really good one, in my opinion, because all you can do on that app is you write, are you bullish on something or bearish on something? That's it. And if the thing goes up, you earn money. And if the thing goes down, you lose money. That's it. It's very simple. It's a simple prediction markets platform where you're basically betting like which direction like Bitcoin's going to go or which direction ETH is going to go. So very excited about that launching, I think, next month. Also excited about an app called Injera launching. So Injera is sort of Injective's take, or an Injective Labs take on what Athena has been doing in terms of being able to earn stable yield. Maybe I can't use the word stable, but yield on stable assets. So I think those use cases can actually attract real users, because the simpler we make it, the better it is. The more jargon you add in, the harder it becomes. Like, just to reiterate my last point. So if you could just simply get stable coins, and then people don't really care on the back end what you're doing with it. Maybe you're trading leverage perps, but you're earning that yield. Those are use cases I think Injective uniquely enables with our modules, our focus on finance. So yeah. And if I missed any dApp, please don't hate me, but I love you all. So I always have to say that as well, because I'm sure someone's going to tweet, like, how come my dApp didn't get a shout out? It's like, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys are killing it. You're building a lot of developers are building a lot of cool stuff. You're building a lot of cool stuff. I'm definitely gonna take a look at Talus, your NFT marketplace. Maybe get myself join this ninja crew. Or
I love ninjas.
Check it out.
Can't wait. Yeah, right. Yeah, right, Joe. We're gonna be into that. And then this bull and bear, I wrote that down personally. For some reason, the simplicity of it really resonates with me. And
me too. Honestly.
Yeah, I have an opinion
because
about
I think they came up with the idea because people were constantly saying, like, oh, do you think Bitcoin's going to go up? Are you bullish? It's like, imagine you could just bet on that. That's great. Because that's all everyone ever talks about in crypto. It's like, hey, which direction is this thing going to go?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's very similar. I'm a pretty big, you mentioned it earlier, I'm a pretty big polymarket user. I have some degenerate tendencies in my life, and I follow a lot of the election and news and current events and fantasy football, and they have, you can literally bet on the crypto price going up or down there every once in a while. And I'll be the first one to
I was
admit
actually
that,
reading on this. I think sports betting is starting to sort of take over crypto trading. So we're apparently losing a lot of crypto users these days because people can just trade, like, bet on sports, bet on elections. So more of those use cases we bring on chain, we can actually get those users over, because that's where I think the users are right now. Like, whether it be, it's just like online casinos in some ways, even though I'm not perhaps allowed to say that. But if we enable more use cases like that, then crypto infra is actually the outlet rather than stake.com. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. And that's a particular type of user, and early crypto users and OGs. I mean, we all have a little bit of gamble in our blood because we figured out this crazy world of Web3 on our own. And, hopefully everyone was successful. And there's tons of opportunity. But I love what you're building out here. Definitely, you have some great things in the works. I would love for you to, give you an opportunity to call out Injective Labs, give a call out for yourself so people can find you, just all that good stuff.
Yeah. Hit us up with a follow at Injective on any social platform, whether it be Discord, Telegram, Twitter. We're very, very active on Twitter, so definitely give us a follow. Join the Ninja community. Highly encourage you guys to check it out because it's very interesting. I often get questions about it. It's like, how did you guys build this? It's like, I didn't. Like, the community kind of made up the word and got behind it, which is great. And I would also recommend you guys, if you guys are looking for jobs, that's the show for Injective Labs. We're hiring across the board, whether it be for like business, marketing, different tech roles, design roles. Hit us up as well. That's injectivelabs.org. So you can check it out there. But yeah, those are the major channels to follow.
Awesome. We really appreciate you jumping on. And everyone, I'm going to put those links down below in the description so you can get easy access. Definitely check it out. And Mirza, we're really happy to have you on. Appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.